In the last episode, I started reviewing George Washington's farewell address. As we pick up in the middle of the document, you may want to go back and refresh your memory. Washington has already talked about the strength of the Union and the centrality of the Constitution. Now we pick up with his advice about separation of powers. So join me as we go through the rest of Washington's farewell address next on the Constitution Study.
Neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. Yes, this is where we read and study the Constitution. And also, by the way, Washington's farewell address. We teach the rising generation to be free. We help people learn to defend and assert their rights. And there's so much we can do here. You can find out more at the website, constitutionstudy.com. I'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the episode, but for now, I really want to get back into Washington's farewell address. Liberty itself will find in such a government, with powers properly distributed and adjusted, its surest guardian. There's a reason why power is distributed in this country, not just within the federal government, but between the state and federal governments as well. Liberty, the ability to live your life as you see fit, is protected by such separation. So when we see the executive branch being delegated and sometimes assuming powers not their own, your liberty is in danger. Even worse, when the states relinquish their power to the bribes and intimidations from Washington, D.C., liberty is not only in danger, but under direct attack. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries have perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purpose of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. The only thing worse than the states turning over control to a centralized government is for them to turn their power over to political parties. The spirit of revenge Washington talked about is alive and well and on full display, not only in Washington, D.C., but in many of our states and cities as well. And as he warned, more and more people are turning to the absolute power of an individual to restore order. But they will only find the ruins of our public liberty. It serves always to distract the public councils and to enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another. This war between the political parties not only distracts those we hire to represent us, but in many cases makes it impossible for them to govern based on the Constitution to which they took an oath. It foments the animosity of groups, driving them toward more militant positions, which will one day lead us to riots and insurrection. If you search the news, you'll see several groups have already gone that far, and their political allies accuse their opponents of doing the same. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism, who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest of props to the duties of men and citizens. Before the Supreme Court wrote their own opinions about separation of church and state, Thomas Jefferson said that it was created to protect the church from the state, not the other way around. Before Jefferson's letter will we get that phrase, Washington stated that religion and morality were indispensable to political prosperity. Or as John Adams put it, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. So why do we work so hard today to keep religion and morality out of politics? If, as Washington said, you cannot claim the name of patriot while subverting these two great pillars, what does that say about those today who labor so hard at tearing them down? As a very important source of strength and security, cherish public credit. One method of preserving it is to use it as sparingly as possible, avoiding occasions of expense by cultivating peace, but remembering also that timely disbursements to prepare for danger frequently prevent much greater disbursements to repel it. Avoiding likewise the accumulation of debt not only by shunning occasions of expense, but by vigorous exertion in time of peace to discharge the debts which unavoidable wars may have occasioned, not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burden which we ourselves ought to bear. The full faith and credit of the United States is a source of great strength and influence, not only in times of peace, but for our ability to fund necessary wars. Therefore, our credit should be something jealously guarded. Today, with our almost $34 trillion in debt, it seems we not only no longer guard our national credit, but debase it. Rather than using our credit sparingly and shunning occasions of expense, as Washington suggested, we've been finding every possible way to expend more and more money, generally for political gain. When in times of peace, rather than taking the opportunity to discharge our debts, we've been ungenerously throwing upon our posterity a burden they could never bear. In the execution of such a plan, nothing is more essential than that permanent, inveterate antipathies against particular nations and passionate attachments to others should be excluded, and that, in place of them, just and amicable feelings towards all should be cultivated. Washington was trying to make a point. As a nation, we should not have strong positions either for or against any nation. This is quite the opposite of America's foreign policy for several generations. Why did Washington think we should stay out of foreign entanglements? The nation which indulges toward another a habitual hatred or a habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. It is a slave to its animosity or to its affections, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interests. When we make a relationship with another nation, when we tie our futures to theirs for good or for ill, we put them in charge of our foreign policy. Our alliance with Great Britain got us into 2 world wars, and our alliance with Saudi Arabia has frequently put us at odds with other Middle Eastern nations, including until recently having our embassy in Israel in Tel Aviv rather than Jerusalem. In the same way, our fear of the Soviet Union influenced our decisions in Eastern Europe for decades. Our fear of China means we still won't officially recognize Taiwan as its own country. Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizen, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of a republican government. Excessive partiality for one foreign nation and excessive dislike for another cause those whom they actuate to see dangers only on one side and serve to veil and even second the arts of influence on the other. Real patriots who may resist the intrigues of the favorite are liable to become suspected and odious, while its tools and dupes usurp the applause and confidence of the people to surrender their interest. Compare Washington's urging against foreign influence to today's agenda for the United States as the world's policeman, the nation you go to when you need assistance or protection. So what would Washington have us do? How would he have us deal with other nations? The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is in extending our commercial relations, to have with them as little political connection as possible. Put another way, in commerce, friends. Beyond that, we should have as little connection as possible. Think back. How many wars have started because of treaties between nations? Now we have calls for the U.S. to not only send weapons to Ukraine, but put American boots on the ground. Why forego the advantages of so particular a situation? Why quit our own to stand upon foreign ground? Why, by interweaving our destiny with that of any part of Europe, entangle our peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice? It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world. So far, I mean, as we are now at liberty to do so. For let me not be misunderstood as capable of patronizing infidelity to existing engagements. I hold the maxim no less applicable to public than to private affairs, that honesty is always the best policy. I repeat it, therefore, let those engagements be observed in their genuine sense. But in my opinion, it is unnecessary and would be unwise to extend them. If honesty is the best policy, both in public and private affairs, here's a truth we should all share. My father told me not to co-sign a loan for a friend because your future is tied to them paying the loan. When we link our futures to the affairs of other nations, they are in control, not us. Put another way, we enslave our future to their decisions. Though in reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error, I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I have committed many errors. Whatever they may be, I frequently beseech the Almighty to avert or mitigate the evils to which they may attend. Here's something rare in politics: humility. The father of the nation, the first president of the United States, and the only man known for walking away from power, had the humility to know that he has probably committed many errors. Now there's a farewell with class. If only our current crop of politicians, bureaucrats, pundits, and so-called experts could show a fraction of such class. What have you learned from the farewell address of the father of our country? Was it the importance of following the Constitution, or of religion and morality? That we should avoid debt and foreign entanglements? Or was it something else? Well, no man is perfect. In fact, Washington not only knew but expressed, there's a lot to learn from his advice. Perhaps a frequent review of his sentiments on such matters would alleviate us of many of our problems, turmoils, and pain. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you part 2 of Washington's farewell address. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot while reading through it. There's a lot of things I hadn't thought of in a while, and probably means I should read it more often, make it a more regular occurrence. Maybe you should as well. I hope you learned something. I hope there's something you could take away from it. And by the way, I hope you'll share that information. Take the link to this episode, share it with friends and family, and links to the first episode as well. Let's remember our first president. Let's learn from his mistakes. Let's learn from his character and demeanor. Maybe let's apply some of that humility as a requirement to the next occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If we wish to have better leadership, we must elect better leaders. If we wish better legislation, we must elect better representatives. But it only happens if we not only demand better, but have a clue what better is. Now, if you want to learn more, please head to the website, constitutionstudy.com. There's a lot going on there. One thing I hope you'll check out is the Patriots program. You can find it in the menu. Just go to Patriots. It's an invitation-only program designed to help you do whatever you want to do better, to give you more tools. The Constitutional Scholars has more education opportunities, and we're developing more. And I'm still looking for feedback on what type of education you'd like to see there. I'm still reaching out to my committees of correspondence so we can establish the communication channels we need to share the information that'll help us move forward while bypassing the censors that like to shut us up. And of course, the Minutemen, the men and women ready at a moment's notice to rise not only to their defense, but to the defense of others. These are all there. And again, it's invitation only. The only way to get an invitation is to go through the boot camp. You can find the link there on the Patriots page. It's a free boot camp. It's a 1-hour video. By the way, if you'd like to see a live video, I'm looking at doing that in 2024. Maybe having a few of these boot camps live via Zoom. Now, it'll be similar content. The advantage is you'll get to ask questions. You'll get to be involved and engaged. So if you're interested, well, let me know. Keep an eye out. If it's something I get enough interest in, I'll be more than willing to do this again. As again, I hope you'll share the information content here. It helps to support the work that we're doing. Of course, if you buy a book or donate to the cause, that would help as well. But sharing is how most people do it. They let other people know about the Constitution study. My numbers have been growing, but they've been growing slowly. Let's see if we can get 2024 to be a blowout year for the Constitution study, for the idea of freedom and justice for all, of reading and studying the Constitution and teaching the rising generations and even teaching ourselves to be free. Hopefully that includes you coming back and joining us next time for the Constitution study.
a few